Monday at 10. Am I on? I said, yes, you will. So we had an appointment in the 9000 building, and he had the Byrds. He had the Byrds, the Beach Boys, Simon and Garfunkel, Paul Revere and the Raiders, and me. Those were his first acts.
Yeah.
I paid his rent for several years.
Well, now, fast forwarding to '67, Derek was the press agent for the Monterey Pop Festival. Did you have any involvement in that at all?
Well, I tell you
Or
what,
you got a story.
I have a story, you'll love this. I was digging around through boxes and stuff. We were clearing out a storage room downstairs off the garage where everybody has a pretty good sized room downstairs. And we just had to get rid of it going through. So, and I found a box of memorabilia that I didn't know I had and so forth. And among this, I found a pristine ticket to the Monterey Pop Festival, which was given to me by Lou and John Phillips and so forth as a guest with all, it was a ticket to the festival and then all access and all that stuff and everything. My wife, Where the Action Is, went off the air, and I was on a Raiders tour. I was still a solo act at the time, and the last show that aired on the air was in, I think, April or May of '67. And Steve Alamo and I got a suite at the Warwick Hotel in New York City, ordered champagne and caviar and so forth, and watched the very last episode. And the last shot is all of us waving and then running down the beach into the sunset.
Yes.
That's the very last
Yes.
shot. While action sings,
Yeah.
So anyway, so my wife is pregnant. I don't go on tour, and I don't. She's about 8 months pregnant, and it's August, and I wanted to go up to Monterey and do all this, but I couldn't go off and leave her alone in Northridge. We had a big place in Northridge with horses and all that stuff, backed up to the railroad track on Chase Street. Everybody had horses. I mean, people next door had 6, and I had 1 and 2, and big dogs and so forth. And anyway, she's
Country in the city.
Country in the city. It was really country out there then. The Porter Ranch was actually a ranch back then.
Yeah.
So anyway, she was so pregnant, I just couldn't leave her alone. So I didn't get to go to the festival. But I had so for my son's 40th birthday, I bought a sterling silver Tiffany frame and had that ticket. And there's a letter with it that says, "This is the reason, you are the reason that I was not able to attend the Monterey Pop Festival."
Nice.
Because I couldn't leave your mother alone, with you, because he was due just any day, and he ended up hanging around almost another month. He was so far overdue. They were like, this is before they used to induce, but he was like 3 weeks overdue,
Well, the festival was June 16th, 17th, and 18th.
Was it June?
Yeah. June
I thought it was in August.
No, that was Woodstock. June 16th, 17th. I wrote the book for
then you would know. I still couldn't go because she was pregnant.
Yeah, so what's your son's birthday?
October 7th.
Okay.
So it had nothing to do. Well, I thought it was, for some reason, thought it was August, but I said, he's still the reason I couldn't go.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't go off and leave his mother.
She was preggers.
She was preggers and home alone, and probably hormonal as all get at it that week.
Yeah, well,
So that was his 40th birthday present, was a
sweet
Tiffany frame with that ticket mounted in it. And,
well, we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of the festival this summer.
why isn't Johnny Rivers footage in the movie?
That's a good question. You'd have to ask Pennebaker and Lou about that.
Yeah. It probably had something to do with how much am I getting paid, Johnny is saying.
It probably had something to do with that, since nobody was getting paid, except,
I knew Alan Pariser real well. He's the one that actually started the whole thing.
That's right. In fact, my partner, Jeff Gans, who does all of Bob Dylan's stuff, has a deal with Pariser's sister. So we have all of his archives at rarecoolstuff.com. So Pariser
has stuff. He had a studio quality system in his living room, and he lived in off a lookout on Stanley Hills.
Alan Pariser, real quickly, was the heir to a fortune. He was the
Sweetheart Straws.
The Sweetheart Straws and
Sweetheart Paper Company.
The paper company, and so he loved rock music, and he helped fund not Derek, but Delaney, Bonnie and Friends, and connected them with all of the British rockers. And so Alan Pariser was kind of one of those rich kid behind the scenes guys.
He stole
really
Delaney and Bonnie from my cousin Jerry Allison.
Oh.
Jerry had him first and was like taking care of him and so forth, and Pariser elbowed his way in there and had the money, and he took him away from him and turned right around. He started Monterey Pop, and then John Phillips and Lou Adler went like this.
Yeah, they co-opted it from him. Yeah. Kicked him to the side of the road.
It's called karma.
Yeah. Not always so instant, but it does come around. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
What a great story. Well, really appreciate the hang. It's been
well, it's been my pleasure. I'm sorry I go off on these tangents.
Oh, no,
because
please.
you say two words and that
Well, listen,
you had asked me a question a little earlier and we never did get to it because of the phone call. I don't know what it was.
No, that was fine. The phone call kind of came at an okay place.
I played on the Beat Goes On.
You did.
I did all this.
Now, who played bass on that? Was that Carol?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Dr. John and B3.
Nice.
And Glenn Campbell, Barney Kessel, and I were playing guitars.
What a session.
I know.
Wrecking Crew.
We recorded it twice because we recorded the record. It became a hit, and then Dodge wanted to use the song for a commercial, but they didn't want to use. They had to recut it.
There's a mechanical thing.
Yeah, so Sonny called me and said,
different master.
we have to. So we went back in and recut the whole thing with all the same people and recut the whole song.
Now, didn't Spector produce that?
No, Sonny.
Sonny produced it.
Sonny had worked for Spector.
Yeah, but it had a lot of Spector-esque, big.
He listened.
522 musicians.
I played in '67. I played on a Sonny album, the only solo album he ever did. Sonny album, a Cher album, and a Sonny and Cher album. And in '66 we cut The Beat Goes On, and then as we went into that we cut You Better Sit Down Kids for her. We cut, and did her whole album. We did Sonny's whole album. We did a Sonny Cher album, so forth, and then I went to Vegas with him to play guitar for him when he went to Flamingo the first time, opening for Myron Cohen, the Borscht Belt comedian.
The Borscht Belt comedian. Yeah. That's hilarious.
And
opening for a comedian, right?
And then when they got bumped up and went to the big room at the Sahara, I was like a good luck charm for him. And Rivers always used me the same way. He had something important or was cutting something that he was tenuous about, I was like a calming effect on these people or something. So Sonny just wanted me to play. So he had Dean Parks on guitar. So Dean and I'm sitting there just playing. I'm having time of my life, standing on stage for an hour, just staying at the Sahara Hotel and playing with Dean's next to me and a full orchestra.
Dean's a character too.
Yeah, and playing and at the Sahara it was Frankie Avalon. And then the comedian David Brenner, and then Sonny and Cher. That was the show. But at the Flamingo, they were opening for Myron Cohen, and then they took off, and then Sonny says, "Look, when we leave here, we're going to New Orleans, playing the so-and-so, and then we're going to Chicago to the Palmer House, and then we're going to the." And he said, "Come go with me." I said, "I can't. We're in the middle of an album on Columbia, and we're going a tour." He said, "Come with me. Leave the Raiders. Come with me. We're in talks to do a television show, and it's going to be huge." I said, "Television show for what?" He said, "CBS." I said, "Like when?" He said, "On Sunday nights." I said, "You mean like in the Smothers Brothers time slot?" He said, I thought, "You're going to be kidding. Sonny's going to be on television on Sunday evening with a variety show?" I thought he was crazy. And lo and behold, they had one of the hottest shows ever,
It was.
But I knew him so well.
Well, yeah, you couldn't see him.
I could not see him.
Role,
And once it started, I went, "Jiminy Christmas, this is great!"
That's amazing.
When I was just too close to him to see it, you know.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
he said, "Yeah, we're going to be on CBS and we're in talks," and I said, "Yeah, right," you know.
Sure, call me when you're
Yeah,
ready.
right.
Well, one thing I wanted to definitely cover before we split up is the final Crickets concert.
Oh, surf ballroom.
And yeah, at the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake. That was in 2016, right?
Yeah, February 6th.
Okay, on the anniversary of the day the music died.
Yeah,
and all that.
it was actually the third.
The third.
But they always do it around that weekend, the first weekend.
Yeah,
Or,
whatever the Saturday
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
But yeah, so what was that? What was that experience like?
it was great, you know, to have.
And who was still in the band in the Crickets?
Well,
What
it was
the
also
lineup?
it was a for Joe Malden, a memorial concert for him.
He
Because
just
he had just passed
recently.
away right before in 2015, at the end of in the autumn of 2015. So J.I. called me and said, "Okay," said Surf Ballroom called and they wanted. We're going to do one last show. We're going to do say goodbye to Joe B. and so forth. He said, "I'm going to get you and Albert, and we'll split it up." And Albert Lee, and so the people that have played with the Crickets. And Albert Lee got in with the group. I was going with the Crickets to England in, I think it was 68. In the spring of '68, I was. We were already booked, and we'd already taken the pictures, and that's one of the pictures from the Sonny and Glendy Harden, J.I. and me.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so we'd already taken the pictures, the promotion was all set, the tour was all set. I'd go to Seattle to play the Seattle Teen Fair with Boyce Hart, who by that time had hits of their own,
Right.
you know. And so we were doing 3 or 4 days there, so we go in a day or so early, and I'm there, and I get a call from Dick Clark Productions. "Keith, we got a television show we want you to co-host with Mark and Paul, with Paul Revere and Mark Lindsay. We're going to shoot it at the Hollywood Palace. It's for this summer. Shooting 5 days a week, the Hollywood Palace. It'll run at 1:30 in the afternoon. Well, they already had the Saturday morning show, It's Happening 68. This one will be called It's Happening. And you'll be the co-host with them." And I said, "Oh my God," you know. And so I'm with Boyce Hart, I get this call. Then I go, "Oh my God, I'm going to England in June with the Crickets. It's already booked."
Uh-oh.
So I get back home and I call J.I. and I said, "J.I., I have some good news and some bad news. The great news is I've got a television series, you know, for the summer, you know, which pays a lot of money, and da 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 da. And as a result of the end of that is when I joined the Raiders, you know. So it pays a lot of money, and I'm shooting in town at the Hollywood Palace every night. I can't go to England with you." He said, "It's already booked. You're featured." And I said, "Help me." And I please forgive me. He said, "I can't blame you. Can't blame you. I understand." So I felt terrible about it. So they go to England, and they made a few calls and said, "You know anybody who can that knows the Cricket songs?" Somebody says, "Yeah, Albert Lee, from Head, Hands, and Feet."
Yep.
You know, he knows all that stuff. So Albert took my place on that tour, and then he worked with them off and on all these years too. And so I'd been in there first for years before, since '64 or so, you know, and had first met them in '57 when they played in San Antonio.
Oh, your
That
cousin.
one, That'll Be the Day, came out, you know.
Yeah.
And they were on the show with Chuck Berry and all those, one of those big tours from back east, you know.
Yeah.
With everybody in the world, and they had 12 acts on the show, you know, big package tour. And I said, so he called me regarding Surf Ballroom. I said, "I would love it." He said, "Tommy V from the V's is putting it all together, you know, Bobby V's son, and he plays upright bass. And the V's have a rockabilly band that played with Bobby V. Said as the boys were born, you'll play guitar, you'll play bass, and you'll play drums.
Right.
And that's it.
Get that family
the
band
family
thing.
band together, and that's it. That's what they did.
Awesome.
And so Tommy V played bass in Joe B. Malden's place. And during the middle of our show, stopped it and we did a tribute, a film tribute, and the Joe B. Malden's family came on stage and said thank you to everybody and so forth. And then they played Raining in My Heart by Buddy Holly as the pictures were showing on the screen.
Wow.
And then the Valance family came on stage. And Richie's sister, she comes quite often. We met them the night before at a dinner, you know, at a private dinner that they threw for all of us. And his older brother Bob and his younger sister were both there. And so it was a combination trip. It was for Joe B, but they also recognized Richie again.
And they're from Pacoima, right?
Pacoima, yeah. There's a big statue of him in the park.
Yep.
There, you know.
Yep.
So anyway, so that was. We went back and forth who's singing what songs, and so he said, J.I. said, I want to start first with just 3 pieces, with just Tommy and me and oh God, you have to cut this.